So Elijah, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? Good old Elijah. On a vision quest. Many years ago I attended, actually it was in, I guess, 1990 when I was serving in Cherokee, the Southeast Jurisdictional Native American Ministries Conference, otherwise known as SEJNAM, the guest speaker, the keynote speaker that year was a Methodist minister from Seattle. He was also the shaman of his tribe. His name is Roy Wilson, and he wrote a book called Native American Liberation Theology. Roy said many things that had profound effects on my life, but one of them, I think, probably has the most profound effect. He said that he believed that God reveals God's self to all peoples in ways they understand. Which makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Why would God reveal God's self to people in ways they didn't understand? That wouldn't seem very bright. And we tend to think that God kind of, has his act together. So it just makes sense that God would reveal God's self to all peoples in ways they understand. Now, the way people in China understand things might be different than the way people in France understand things. Well, everything's different than the way people in France understand things, but... And so, once you start to wrap your mind around that, then that leads to other things. And I, over the years, have discovered that there are elements of spirituality in so many different religions and ways of doing things that I can learn from to enhance and augment my own spiritual journey. I'm perfectly fine with following the way. I kind of like Jesus. I think he's pretty good, Well, I think he's great. Thinks, for me, there's no reason to go anywhere else. But how I walk that walk gets influenced by the way other people walk their spiritual journeys. And today, as we talk about vision, I want to share 3 ways that maybe our Native American brothers and sisters can teach us a couple things that are valuable about our own spiritual walk. The first of those is really about seeing. The early Christians and how it influences how we think. The early Christians met in people's homes. And, if you need to put a lot of people in your house, what do? You push all the furniture back against the walls and you sit in a big circle. Well, kind of a rectangle, but, And the altar is either along one wall or maybe in the middle. And so you're all gathered around it. And that's the way Christians worshipped for the first 300 and some odd years. Until Constantine decided that Christianity should be the religion of the state, which meant everybody had to go. Which meant we needed a big place to do that. Which meant we had to move to the basilicas that were set up for pagan worship because, well, people were already used to going there. You just got to change take down the emperor statue and put up a cross. They're already used to going there, so let's just move to that building. And a basilica is shaped like, well, you're sitting in one. Everybody sits in rows, vertically like this, and they all view the altar up there. Which means that the view from over there and the view from over there is not all that different. It's pretty much the same view that everybody shares all the time. That one view of God. And what happens over 1,600 years is because that's the view we have. It must be the right view. Otherwise, why would we have it? That would be silly to have the wrong view of God for 1,600 years. That wouldn't make any sense. So it must be the right view. And over time, the right view becomes the only view. So that when we meet someone with a different view of God, and ours is right, theirs is wrong. So what do? We try to convince them that theirs is wrong and ours is right. We try to convert them to the way we see God. Or kill them. Yeah, you're right, Jim. No, that's exactly true. If they won't convert, we kill them. That's a nice Christian thing to do. But you're right. That's what we've done historically over the years. All because we all share the same view. In Native American spirituality, worship's always done in the circle. The altar's in the middle. Everyone has a different view of God. And everyone knows that everyone has a different view of God. And everyone knows that they only have a partial view of God. So if I want to know what God looks like from that point of view, what do? I go over there and talk to them and say, how do you see God? And they tell me. And that adds to my understanding of God. So when people from different traditions in Native American spirituality meet, they want to learn what the other knows. They don't try to convert that one to the way I see it. It's not even part of the mind frame. It's, let me tell you what I know about God. You tell me what you know about God. And together we will both know more about God. I think we can learn that lesson. Maybe we quit killing people that didn't agree with us. You know? That's something we can learn about vision. And it's just because we've been sitting the same way for 1,600 years. Isn't that crazy? If we had been sitting in circles, we'd think different. Because we'd understand that the view we have is limited. Anytime we think we've got God all figured out, we're in trouble. Every time we put God in that nice little box and wrap it all up and tie it with a bow, we've done ourselves in. Because God doesn't fit. I think even the Jews with the wonderful box that they put God in, which Indiana Jones is still trying to find. The Ark of the Covenant. The Ark, that's a Hebrew word for box. I don't think you can put God in a box. I don't think that works. It's never worked for me. So maybe we should try to understand that we have the opportunity to see God from many different ways. And in today's age of the internet, the information is easily accessible. But how different would it look if, as Christians, we made a concerted effort proactively to actually learn other ways of looking at God so that it would augment our own spiritual journeys and lives? Wouldn't that be a better way to go than telling people they're wrong all the time and that they've got to do it the way we do it or they're going to hell? I mean, how arrogant is that? And I don't think Jesus taught us arrogance. I don't remember that anywhere in the gospel. It just doesn't seem to come to mind. So maybe that's a way that our native brothers and sisters can help us see things a little differently. Another part of vision is understanding that even though God reveals God's self to all people, sometimes they're pretty similar. I've got some pictures of. Can we run those? Can we look at the first one, Paul? This is an artist's rendition of the throne room of God from John the Revelator. Read Revelations. Here's the God in the center like the great stone of jasper, and the 7 pillars of fire around that, and the 24 elders around that, and then the beast, the eagle up there, and the cow and the lion and the bear, the man. And surrounded by the throngs. If you read Revelation and read Jeremiah and read Ezekiel, you see the wheel and this great vision of the throne room of God. Roy Wilson shared this with us as he had the text read, and then show the next one. And he said, what do you have before you? You have a Native American medicine wheel. Because if you read Black Elk and you read Lame Deer and their visions of the throne room of God, guess what? It's the same vision. Show the next one. This is a wonderful, this is an altar in Native American spirituality. The throne room of God. And the last one will give us some clues. The eagle, the bear, man, that's the man beast. The buffalo instead of a cow. They had cows too much around here until they got domesticated. And either coyote or mountain lion, depending on the tribe. The animals are the same around the circle. The circle of life, the spring and summer and fall and winter. Birth and youth and middle age and golden years. And notice in the middle, in the 7 things around the throne, that's a Native American medicine wheel, as visioned by Black Elk and Lame Deer back in the 1800s, who had no contact with Christians up until that point. God reveals God's self to all peoples in ways they understand. And if 2 different people see the throne room of God and describe it in ways they understand, it's still pretty darn similar. I don't know about you, but the first time I saw that, I went, ooh, I didn't think about that one. If God revealed God's self to native peoples, wouldn't they understand it in ways of symbols of the animals and plants around them? I discovered these are based on moons. I was born in Duck's Fly Moon, because that's when the ducks fly away. Duck's Fly Moon, the symbol is a raven. Raven is always a symbol in Native American spirituality from tribe to tribe for one who is a messenger from God. Roy said, I'm a raven. You can't do anything else. I went, oh, okay. It's nice to know how that fits, though. But, I know a lot of preachers that weren't born in that part of September, so, it's not necessarily true. But to understand life as a circle, not, cradle to grave, but something that continues, that as death comes, there's new life and resurrection, and God, I've heard that somewhere before, have you? Yeah. All our lives are a circle. Sunrise to sunset. We keep going around the same things all the time. Often with different circumstances, but and hopefully as we circle around, we do it better. To know more about God, we need to understand how others see God. Knowing that the things of God, the things that are of God, don't vary a whole lot. If you get something that's way off in left field, then, well, maybe that wasn't a revelation from God. Because people express things in very similar terms. That's a way to discern what's helpful and what's not. The other thing about vision is how important it is in guiding us individually and as a group towards a common goal towards our own destiny. In many Native American cultures at that time, when for Jews it was bar mitzvahs, for us Christians it's confirmation, but it's that time right around 12, 13, 14 when we have these ancient rites and ceremonies of coming into adulthood or into beyond childhood, or whatever we want to call it. Culturally, we've kind of messed with that over the last 100 years or so because we keep pushing that. We call 16-year-olds children, and a couple hundred years ago, they were members of the tribe. They were adults. They were ready to go. It wasn't. How many folks here? How many of your grandparents got married before they were 20? Yeah, now it's like, oh my goodness, that'll never last. And your grandparents were married for 65 years. But, it's a different time now. I mean, we keep pushing that in our country. If you go to Africa, it's, 18-year-olds are pretty much married by that, or 16 or 14, Some of your grandparents might have got married when they were 14 and 15. Yeah. Now it would be, oh my goodness. Things, we redefine things culturally all the time. But at that time of coming of age, for many Native American tribes, the young person, usually males, unfortunately they were paternalistic, but we all learned, would go off on a vision quest, which meant they would go off into the wilderness and fast until a vision came to them. Does that sound like a familiar story from Scripture anywhere? Gee, we read one of those this morning. Elijah goes off for, 40 days? There's this wonderful 40 days thing. Goes off for 40 days and finally gets to a cave and collapses and goes to sleep. No kidding. Talking with Kathy this morning, getting ready to go to a hiking camp. How about hiking for 40 days without food? Yeah. And he collapsed and fell asleep. Really? I wouldn't make it 40 days before I collapsed and fell asleep. Jesus wandered in the wilderness for 40 days, fasting until he received his vision of who he would be and what he would be. Often in Native American cultures, this included naming, so that the visions that the young person had would often include, elements of nature or animals, and they would receive their name that way. Now, I can guarantee you, if you go out and sit in the wilderness for, a week or two and you don't eat anything, you're going to have visions. That's just part of how the body works. My name would be Double Cheeseburger. And fries. It's a good thing they didn't have that stuff back then when they did that. But so that would become their animal totem, and not that they worship that animal, but someone called Dancing Bear, because they saw a dancing bear in their vision, would mean that was their communication tool with God. So that becomes that personal way. For me, it's communion. That's a good enough symbol for me. For me, that act of receiving communion is a very personal way for me to receive God's grace. For Dancing Bear, it's a bear. I mean, for Running Dog, it's a dog. It's just a way of having that personal relationship with God and knowing that your spirit and God's spirit are one. And it would often determine the destiny of that young man, depending on the vision, whether they became a warrior or a shaman, or some other, or a chief, or some other facet of the organization of that tribe. Often the vision that they received determined who they would become in the organization of that tribe. When we talk about vision, we think of stories like Elijah, who comes to complain to God, and a wonderful job of reading. You didn't do it whining enough. I mean, Elijah's like, all the people have turned away, and I'm the only one left, and they want to kill me. Read the text. He's whining to God. I'm the only one left. I'm the only one that has a vision anymore. Everybody should have burned down all the places of worship, and I don't know what to do. Elijah. And God comes and there's an earthquake, and God's not there. And there's, mighty wind, and God's not there. And there's lightning and thunder, and God's not there. God finally goes, Elijah, hey, what are you doing here? Get to work. The get to work's not in the text, but that's essentially what he does. What are you doing here? Well, I'm here because everybody's gone and I don't know what to do, and they're all burned down the worship places, and I don't know, so well, I'm the only one left, and I'm the only. Elijah, what are you doing here? Get to work. Sometimes we get that way, What is it? Attendance is going down in the denomination, and I know we can't get the young people, and I just don't know what to do. Sometimes. And that's annual conference. There was a lot of that at annual conference this year, wasn't there? Because it's scary. I shared some figures with our annual conference folk. I don't know if you got those emails yesterday. I got the Western North Carolina Conference is in conference right now. Very late. We had one provisional candidate consecrated this year in our conference, and she's on a deacon track. So we had 0 elder candidates commissioned this year, consecrated as provisional members. West North Carolina Annual Conference had 21. We ordained 5 total? 4 total. They ordained 20. Yeah. It's a huge, it's 3 times as big, the conference, but 3 times 4 isn't 20. It's 3 times 1 isn't 21, no, okay. We have some serious work to do. I mean, this year at annual conference, there were 0 provisional candidates for ministry. That's scary. We need vision. We need that purpose. Fortunately, we had a lot of people go down and commit to it. One of those being Paul. He's around here somewhere. Who said, I want to be a candidate for ministry. Well, yay! We need those young people. The vision that we have is what will guide us into the future. The vision that we have names us as to who we are and how we act out this thing we call faith, this thing we call church. The main quest of the Vital Church Initiative that we're a part of is to define our vision. Not make one up, oh, this would be nice, let's do that. But to define who we really are and what our vision is. So that everything forms around that vision. And the things that don't make sense with that vision, we quit doing. And the things that make sense with that vision, we start to do. As I've been here for 2 years, it seems to me, what you are telling me, is that your vision is that as a church, we can make a positive difference in our community and transform people's lives by making disciples of Christ. Now, our conference, and that's a little different than our Methodist vision right now, which is making disciples of Jesus Christ to transform the world. We kind of look at it the other way here. We think that if you transform the world, transform people's lives, that will attract them to the body that's doing that, and thereby we have the opportunity then to make disciples of Jesus Christ, who then will go back out and transform some more. I think that's a great vision. How better can we serve our community than to help those people who have needs, to help those kids in school, to help those people that are hungry, to help folks that need help, and to provide some entertainment for folks downtown, to have events that people can come to that make them feel good about being part of this community. There's a lot of ways that we can help Coloma and Waterville feel good about themselves and make all of our community a better place to be for all of us. And that's a great vision. And if we let that vision guide us, then what kinds of things does it lead us to? And those are the kinds of things that we find, we discover together. Because the process teaches us that only we know the answers, and we know the answers. We just have to learn how to find them, and how to define them, and how to enact them. And so we envision. That's the first step. And then we equip. We get all the necessary stuff we need, the planning and funding and personnel and whatever we need to make it happen, and then we enact it. And then we evaluate it. What worked? What didn't work? What did we learn? And then we envision a little more, and then we re-equip it, and then we reenact it, and that circle. There's a circle somewhere earlier in this thing, but that circle just continues in everything we do, so that we can live out the vision that God has given us. If we can learn anything from our Native American brothers and sisters, it's that without vision, we die. It's as simple as that. Without vision, we die. Oh, it takes a while, but we die. And we don't want to. There's no reason to. Because we have the ability to live. Because we have a wondrous God who fills us with life, who regenerates us when we're down, who inspires us and guides us along the way. It's not a God in a box somewhere. It's a God that will bring us to where God needs us to be. All we have to do is join the parade. That's what you have to decide, whether or not you want to join the parade or not. So, because it's nobody's telling us what to do other than the good Lord, as He reveals what our vision and mission is and how to act it out. I hope that as we go into this process, you will enter that with eagerness and anticipation, just to see, Papa, what are we doing now? Have that eagerness of a child.